Watch your lot, lady! We've been coming through this stretch for years! You don't get to point those things at me and act like you run it!
Just asking you to move, sir. Customers can't get in.
Not my problem, you hear me? Not my problem.
She could barely stand. Her leg throbbed with every step, but she had no choice. She had to work. The diner was her lifeline, the only thing keeping a roof over her daughter's head. But when those motorcycles roared into the parking lot, when those leather-clad men walked through that door, everything changed. What happened next wasn't just unexpected. It shattered every assumption, every prejudice, every wall we build between us and strangers. This is a story about pain, about judgment, and about the moment when humanity breaks through in the most shocking way imaginable. The question is, are you ready to see what really happened?
Her name was Maya Richardson, and at 26 years old, she'd already lived 3 lifetimes of struggle. The red and white diner uniform hung loose on her thin frame. She'd lost weight in the past month, stress eating away at her like acid. But it was the crutches that told the real story. The aluminum supports had become extensions of her body, necessary companions in a journey she never asked to take. 3 weeks earlier, Maya's car had broken down on Route 9. No insurance, no savings for a tow truck, no choice but to walk the 5 miles home after her evening shift. She'd made it 3 miles before a truck swerved too close, forcing her off the road and down an embankment. The fall shattered her ankle in 2 places. The hospital bill shattered what little financial stability she had left. Now she worked on crutches, pain medication rationed to last the month because she couldn't afford refills. Her daughter, Jasmine, only 4 years old, stayed with Maya's mother during the day, another source of guilt that kept Maya awake at night. She was supposed to be the provider, the strong one, the one who'd escaped the cycle of poverty that had trapped her family for generations. Instead, she was limping through life, literally and figuratively, one painful step at a time. The Crossroads Diner sat on the edge of Millerton, a small town where everyone knew everyone, and outsiders were noticed immediately. Maya had worked there for 2 years, ever since Jasmine's father disappeared, leaving nothing but broken promises and an empty bank account. The owner, Mr. Peterson, was decent enough. He'd let her keep working despite the crutches, though he'd made it clear she needed to keep up the pace, or he'd have to make difficult decisions. Translation, work through the pain or lose your job. It was a Thursday afternoon in late September. The lunch rush had ended, leaving Maya with a blessed 30-minute window to rest her aching leg. She sat in the back booth, crutches leaning against the red vinyl seat, massaging her calf and trying not to think about the electric bill that was due tomorrow. The diner smelled like coffee and maple syrup, sounds of classic rock drifting from the old jukebox in the corner. That's when she heard them. The rumble started low, distant, like thunder rolling across flat land, but it grew, intensified, until the windows rattled and the silverware trembled on the tables. Motorcycles. Lots of them. Maya's heart sank. She knew what was coming. She'd seen it before. Bikers passing through, loud and intimidating, ordering everything on the menu and leaving chaos in their wake. And in her condition, she was the only server on duty. The engines cut out one by one, replaced by rough laughter and heavy boots on gravel. Maya pulled herself up, grabbed her crutches, and straightened her uniform. Her hands shook slightly as she smoothed her name tag. Through the window, she counted them. 8, maybe 10 motorcycles, all gleaming chrome and black leather. The riders dismounted, stretching road-weary muscles, their jackets emblazoned with a skull and crossbones insignia she didn't recognize. The door swung open with a bang that made her flinch. They filled the diner like a storm, all tattoos and rough edges and energy that felt barely contained. Maya had learned long ago to read rooms, to sense danger before it arrived. Right now, every instinct screamed at her to be careful, to stay small, to not draw attention. But she was the only one here. There was no avoiding this. Afternoon, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Sit anywhere you like." The lead biker, a man with a gray beard and arms covered in ink, glanced at her crutches, then away. His eyes were unreadable behind dark sunglasses. The group claimed 3 tables, pulling chairs around with scraping sounds that set Maya's teeth on edge. She approached slowly, each step a negotiation between necessity and pain. "What can I get you?" she asked, notepad ready. The bearded man removed his sunglasses, and Maya saw something in his expression that made her stomach tighten. Not quite hostility, but not kindness either. Evaluation. Judgment. The kind of look she'd learned to recognize in a town where being young, black, and struggling made you either invisible or a target. "Coffee," he said gruffly, "for everyone, and we'll need menus." As Maya turned toward the counter, she heard the whispers start behind her. Low voices, words she couldn't quite catch, but whose tone she recognized all too well. This was going to be a long afternoon, and something deep in her gut told her that today would be different from all the other difficult days. Today, something was going to break, either her spirit or the fragile peace she'd been fighting to maintain. She had no idea how right she was.
Maya moved between the kitchen and the tables, her crutches thumping against the worn linoleum floor in a rhythm that had become her heartbeat over the past 3 weeks. Each trip was agony. Her underarms were raw from the constant pressure, her good leg cramping from overcompensation, her injured ankle sending shooting pains up her calf despite the medication. But she kept moving, kept smiling, kept pretending everything was fine. The bikers ordered heavy: burgers, fries, onion rings, pie. Maya wrote it all down, her hands steady even as her leg trembled. As she collected the menus, one of the younger bikers, a man with a snake tattoo winding up his neck, looked directly at her ankle. "That looks rough," he said, his voice neutral. "How long you been working like that?" Maya hesitated. Was it genuine concern or set up for mockery? She'd learned that questions like that often had sharp edges hidden beneath friendly tones. "Few weeks," she replied carefully. "Managing okay." "Looks like more than managing," another biker chimed in, a woman with short-cropped hair and fierce eyes. "Looks like torture." Maya forced a smile. Bills don't pay themselves. She retreated to the kitchen, where Mr. Peterson was nowhere to be found, probably in his office, conveniently absent when difficult customers arrived. Maya fired up the grill, assembled orders, and tried to ignore the increasing volume of conversation from the dining room. Their voices rose and fell, punctuated by laughter that seemed to grow more pointed, more deliberate. When she brought out the first round of food, balancing plates on a tray while maneuvering her crutches in a precarious dance she'd perfected through necessity, she noticed the atmosphere had shifted. The bikers had gone quiet, watching her approach. Every eye tracked her movements, the way she winced with each step, the way sweat had begun to bead on her forehead as she bit her lip to keep from crying out when she put too much weight on her bad ankle. "Here you go," Maya said, distributing plates with practiced efficiency. "Let me know if you need anything else." As she turned to leave, the bearded leader spoke up. "You know what I need? I need to understand why you're working in this condition." Maya stopped, her back still turned. The question hung in the air, heavy with implications she couldn't quite parse. "Already told you," he said evenly. "Bills." "That's not an answer," he pressed. "That's an excuse. What's really going on here?" Now Maya turned, meeting his gaze directly despite the alarm bells ringing in her head. "With all due respect, sir, my personal situation isn't really your concern. I'm here to serve you food, not tell you my life story." A few of the bikers exchanged glances. The woman with short hair leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "Defensive," she observed. "Why is that?" "I'm not defensive," Maya replied, though her grip on the crutches had tightened until her knuckles went pale. "I'm just doing my job. In a white-owned diner, in a white town, with a white boss who's got you working on crutches. That about sum it all up?" Maya's breath caught. There it was, the razor edge she'd been waiting for, the moment when uncomfortable scrutiny turned into something uglier. She'd experienced variations of this conversation her entire life in classrooms and job interviews and grocery store parking lots. The interrogation disguised as curiosity, the accusations wrapped in questions. "I don't see what race has to do with—" "You don't?" The bearded man cut her off. "Come on now, you're telling me you haven't noticed, haven't felt it? The way this town looks at you? The way your boss conveniently disappears when we roll up, leaving you alone to deal with us?" He's probably just a coward," the woman interjected. "And you're probably just too tired and too hurt and too scared to call it what it is." Maya felt heat rising in her chest, a mixture of anger and humiliation and fear that made her voice shake when she spoke. "You don't know anything about my life. You roll in here on your motorcycles all tough and judging, making assumptions about me, about this town, about everything. You want to know why I'm defensive? Because people like you think they know my story before I even open my mouth." The silence that followed was absolute. Maya realized she was breathing hard. Her entire body was trembling now, not just from pain, but from the release of words she'd kept locked inside for too long. She'd crossed a line. She'd talked back to customers. In Mr. Peterson's diner, that was grounds for immediate termination. But instead of anger, what she saw on the bikers' faces shocked her more than any insult could have. The bearded man was nodding slowly. The woman's expression had softened. The young guy with the snake tattoo was actually smiling. "There it is," the leader said quietly. "There's the truth." Before Maya could respond, Mr. Peterson burst through the kitchen door, his face red and panicked. "Maya, is everything—" He spotted the bikers and his expression transformed into forced cheerfulness. "Gentlemen, ladies, everything okay here?" "Actually, no," the bearded man said, standing up. His full height was imposing, well over 6 feet, and Mr. Peterson actually took a step back. "We've got a problem, a serious problem." Maya's heart plummeted. This was it. She was about to get fired, and these bikers, these white bikers who had been interrogating her about race and pain and survival, were about to make sure it happened. The irony was so bitter she could taste it. "What's the problem?" Mr. Peterson asked, his voice now thin and uncertain. The biker pointed at Maya. "Her. She's your problem." Maya closed her eyes, waiting for the blow. "You've got this woman working on crutches, barely able to stand, clearly in pain, serving food like nothing's wrong. What kind of employer does that? What kind of human being sees someone suffering and thinks, yeah, that's fine, just keep working through it?" Maya's eyes snapped open. "Wait, what?" She said she could," Mr. Peterson stammered. "Of course she said she could. What choice does she have? Tell me, you paying her medical bills? You giving her paid leave? Or are you just counting on her desperation to keep her working while you profit off her pain?" The other bikers were standing up now, forming a wall of leather and muscle and righteous anger that seemed to fill the entire diner. Maya stood frozen between them and her boss, her mind reeling, unable to process what was happening. "This isn't—" "You don't understand," Mr. Peterson tried. "We understand perfectly," the bearded man said coldly. "We've ridden through a lot of towns, seen a lot of situations like this. Young woman, person of color, no resources, no options, working herself literally to death because people like you create systems where that's the only choice. You think we don't see it? You think we don't know exactly what's happening here?" "I want you to leave," Mr. Peterson said suddenly, trying to regain some authority. "All of you, right now." "Oh, we'll leave, but not before we make something crystal clear." She turned to Maya, her fierce eyes now filled with something that looked almost like compassion. "You, what's your name?" "Maya," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Maya, listen to me. You don't have to do this. You don't have to break yourself for a man who doesn't value you. You don't have to smile through pain because society taught you that's what survival looks like. You hear me?" Maya couldn't speak, couldn't move.
Tears were streaming down her face now, months of repressed emotion breaking through her carefully maintained walls. The bearded man pulled out his wallet, extracted a thick stack of bills, and placed them on the counter. "That's for the food and 1,000% tip. Maya gets every penny of that tip, you understand? Every single penny. And if we find out she didn't," he let the threat hang unfinished in the air. Then he did something that would replay in Maya's mind for years to come. He walked over to her, looked her directly in the eyes, and said, "You deserve better than this. Don't ever forget that."
The moment the bikers left, Mr. Peterson's fear transformed into fury. The door hadn't even swung closed before he rounded on Maya, his face purple with rage. "What did you say to them?" he demanded, spit flying from his lips. "What did you tell those people about me, about this diner?" Maya backed up instinctively, her crutches nearly slipping on the floor. I didn't say anything, I swear." "Bullshit!" He was advancing on her now, and Maya realized with cold terror that she was trapped between him and the counter, her mobility completely compromised. "They didn't just randomly decide to attack me, to accuse me of exploitation. You put that in their heads." "Mr. Peterson, please, I just served them food." "You ran your mouth, is what you did. You stood there and probably cried about how hard your life is, how mean I am, how difficult everything is for poor Maya. Well, you know what? I'm sick of it. I gave you a job when nobody else would. I kept you on even after you showed up with those damned crutches, and this is how you repay me?" Maya's fear was crystallizing into something else now, something harder. All the years of swallowing insults, accepting less, making herself small, all of it was bubbling to the surface like water about to boil. "You kept me on," she repeated slowly, "because you know I work harder than anyone else, because I never complain, never call in sick, never cause problems. You kept me on because exploiting someone desperate is profitable, Mr. Peterson. And you know what? They were right about you." The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Peterson's face went from purple to white. "Get out," he whispered. "You're fired. Get your things and get out of my diner." Maya had known this moment was coming from the second the bikers started their confrontation, but hearing the words still hit like a physical blow. Her job, her income, her daughter's food and shelter, all of it gone in an instant. "You're firing me," she said, her voice hollow. "For telling the truth? I'm firing you for insubordination and for damaging my business's reputation." Mr. Peterson was shouting again. "Those bikers could leave reviews, could tell people, could what?" Maya interrupted, something fierce and reckless rising in her chest. "Could tell people that you worked an injured black woman until she could barely stand? That you threatened her job unless she kept up the pace? That you paid minimum wage with no benefits while you drive a brand new Mercedes? Which part of the truth scares you most, Mr. Peterson? How dare you? No! How dare you? You think I don't know what this is? You think I don't see it? I've been seeing it my whole life. The way you talk to me versus how you talk to the white servers. The way my schedule always gets the worst shifts. The way you look at me like I'm lucky to be here, like I should be grateful for scraps." She was crying now, tears streaming down her face, but her voice didn't waver. Years of silence were breaking, and nothing could stop the flood. "You know what those bikers did that you never did? They saw me. Actually saw me. Not as a problem, or a risk, or cheap labor, but as a human being in pain who deserved better. Complete strangers showed me more humanity in 10 minutes than you've shown in 2 years." Mr. Peterson stood frozen, his anger seemingly spent, replaced with something that looked almost like shame. Almost. "Get out," he repeated, but the venom was gone from his voice. "Just get out." Maya grabbed her purse from behind the counter, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip the straps. She turned toward the door, then stopped. One more thing needed to be said. "You're going to keep that tip money, aren't you? The money they specifically said was for me. You're going to pocket it." Mr. Peterson said nothing, but his eyes slid away from hers. and that told her everything she needed to know. I hope it's worth it. I hope that money buys you something that helps you sleep at night. She pushed through the door, stepping out into the afternoon sun. The parking lot was empty. The bikers were long gone. She stood there for a moment, crutches digging into the gravel, the enormity of what had just happened crashing over her like a wave. No job. No income. No idea how she'd pay next month's rent or feed her daughter, or fix her car or pay her medical bills. All of it she had been fighting to hold together had just collapsed. But underneath the fear, underneath the devastation, there was something else. Something small but undeniable. Freedom. For the first time in 2 years, she didn't have to pretend. Didn't have to smile through pain. Didn't have to accept crumbs and call them sustenance. Maya Richardson had finally told the truth, and the truth had cost her everything. The question now was, what came next?
Maya made it 3 blocks before she had to stop. Her arms were screaming, her good leg trembling from exhaustion, her bad ankle throbbing with every heartbeat. She lowered herself onto a bus stop bench and let the crutches clatter to the ground beside her. The afternoon sun felt too bright, the world too large, her problems too insurmountable. She pulled out her phone to call her mother, to explain that she'd lost her job and had no idea how they'd survive the next month. But before she could dial, a text appeared from an unknown number. Maya from the Crossroads Diner? This is Sarah. We met today with my writing group. Don't panic. Check your bank account. With shaking fingers, Maya opened her banking app. Her checking account, which had shown a balance of $47.12 that morning, now displayed a number that made her gasp out loud. $8,647.12. Another text arrived. 8 of us contributed. It's not charity, it's reparations for a system that failed you. Use it to heal, to rest, to find something better. You deserve that much. Maya stared at her phone, tears blurring the screen. $8,000. Not enough to solve everything, but enough to breathe, enough to rest, enough to take her daughter to the park without wondering if her ankle would give out, enough to prove that sometimes, in the most unexpected moments, humanity breaks through the walls we build between us. A third text. P.S. We left reviews of the Crossroads Diner on every platform we could find, told the truth about what we saw. Sometimes, accountability looks like consequences. Maya allowed herself a small, bitter smile. Mr. Peterson would be dealing with his own crisis now. Part of her, the part that had been humiliated and exploited and discarded, felt a dark satisfaction at that. But mostly she just felt tired. Over the following weeks, Maya learned that the bikers were part of an organization called the Iron Coalition, a diverse group of writers who traveled the country specifically looking for instances of workplace exploitation, discrimination, and injustice. They'd stopped at the Crossroads Diner by chance, but what they'd witnessed had been sadly familiar, a pattern they'd seen repeated in different forms across different towns. Sarah, the woman with short hair and fierce eyes, called Maya a few days later. They talked for 2 hours. Sarah shared her own story of discrimination, of fighting against systems designed to keep certain people small. She connected Maya with employment lawyers who worked pro bono, who helped her file complaints with the labor board. She introduced her to other women who'd survived similar situations, who'd rebuilt their lives from wreckage. The money lasted 4 months, carefully rationed. During that time, Maya's ankle healed properly. She spent time with her daughter. She enrolled in community college classes to become a medical technician. She learned to ask for help without shame, to speak her truth without fear of punishment. The Crossroads Diner closed 6 months after the incident. The combination of bad reviews, labor board investigations, and lost customers proved too much for Mr. Peterson to overcome. Maya felt no joy at the news, only a quiet sense of completion. Injustice had been acknowledged. Consequences had occurred. The system, for once, had functioned as it should.
But the real impact of that day, the real transformation, wasn't measured in dollars or closed businesses or vindication. It was measured in the moment, 3 years later, when Maya, now a certified phlebotomist at the county hospital, saw a young Latina woman limping through the parking lot in a fast food uniform, clearly in pain, clearly desperate to keep working. Maya stopped her, introduced herself, shared her story, connected her with resources, offered help without judgment, humanity without conditions. "You don't have to break yourself," Maya told her, echoing words that once had saved her. "You deserve better than this." The cycle continued, but this time with different energy. This time with people who'd been through the fire and emerged determined to pull others out of the flames. This time with strangers who became allies, who saw pain and responded with compassion instead of exploitation. This is what redemption looks like. Not dramatic, not perfect, just human beings, choosing in small moments to see each other's humanity, to act with courage when silence would be easier, to intervene when injustice appears, even when, especially when, it's uncomfortable. Maya Richardson still thinks about that afternoon in the diner, about the bikers who saw her pain and refused to look away, about the moment she finally spoke her truth, even knowing it would cost her everything, about the discovery that sometimes losing everything you thought you needed is how you find what you actually deserve. Here's what we need to understand. Racism isn't always burning crosses and hate speech. Sometimes it's a boss who works you until you break because he knows you have no other options. It's a system that forces people to choose between dignity and survival. It's 1,000 small cruelties disguised as just business or the way things are. And resistance isn't always marches and movements. Sometimes it's refusing to smile through pain. It's strangers choosing solidarity over silence. It's one person telling another, "You deserve better, and I'm going to help you get there."